Yeah, this is what we call unplugged, Will. And literally any question, even the name of my dog, and everything, anything goes. So if you got a sales question, you got a sales challenge, you got something that's bothering you, just drop it in chat and Will's going to be moderating. So Will, you're watching this. So throw the questions at me. And if we don't have one, Will, I know you got a couple to start with. So let's go.
Maybe to buy me some time to look at the chat and find some good questions. Jeb, your book, Fanatical Prospecting, was actually the first ever sales book I ever read back in, I think, 2017. When did it come out?
Yeah, it was 2015 when it came out.
Right. So I was a couple of years late, but it was still super valuable to me. My wife actually doesn't like the book because I've made her listen to it so many times in the car. And the most recent book I read was Selling in a Crisis, your most recent book. Really good book. Highly recommend it. Really motivational, great for mindset. I'm curious, other than the stuff you may have mentioned in those books, what are the main things that have changed in sales over the past, let's say, 5-6 years?
Well, really, if you think about it, the only real big thing that's changed in sales is that we've just expanded the number of communication channels. So when the pandemic happened, we all had to move into virtual. That doesn't mean that there weren't a lot of salespeople selling virtually earlier, but we had to move into virtual, and customers and us and everybody in sales got a lot more comfortable using different channels. And Vidyard's a great example of that. Vidyard's one of my favorite tools. When I wrote virtual selling during the crisis, I used Vidyard as an example of how you could use video messaging to connect with people. So we've been able to expand the number of asynchronous channels. We've been able to use medium like video and gotten good at that. But we've also learned, some of us have learned, some of us haven't learned, but we've also learned how to sequence prospecting touches in a way that allows us to engage prospects and increases the probability that we'll engage prospects. If you go back to Fanatical Prospecting, in Fanatical Prospecting, I used a term then called strategic prospecting, which was the process of using sequencing. Since then, we've really dialed into the science of that. And I've got a new book coming out later this year called Fanatical Prospecting Sequencing that really dives into the mechanics of how do you run great prospecting sequences that improve the probability that prospects engage. So I think for me, that's like the biggest change. But the fact that you still have to prospect, that hadn't changed. The fact that people still think prospecting sucks, that hasn't changed. And the fact that buyers and prospects will still run away from you because you're in sales and you're interrupting their day, that hasn't changed. And the fact that a lot of salespeople send really, really bad prospecting emails, that hasn't changed.
There's still a very low bar to stand out in terms of those bad prospecting emails. Just a note, because the chat's going by so quickly, loads of great feedback, and everyone's really excited to be here. If you do have a question, you need to spot them and ask them to Jeb. Ask it in the Q&A tab. It's slightly separate from the chat, because otherwise they're going to fly by, and I'm not going to have to scroll up, and I'm going to be all over the shop. We do have a good question here. In a hybrid world, Jeb, is there a ratio you would suggest for meeting in person versus meeting over video? I'm curious about your answer on this one.
Okay. Back to books. So, and this is not meant to be a gratuitous book plug, but I take this on specifically in virtual selling. And virtual selling was an international runaway blockbuster, and I highly recommend reading it because it'll fill in some of these spaces. In a hybrid world, what we want to think about is a concept called blending. Now, what blending is choosing the communication channel for a particular prospect, for a particular deal in your pipeline at a given time that will give you the highest probability of gaining your desired outcome at the lowest cost of time, energy, and money. I want you to think about that for a second, okay? So when we think about the hybrid world, we're not thinking about, you're thinking about black and white, zero sum. Is there a percentage of time that I do this, a percentage of time that I do that? My message to you is you got to use this, your noggin. You've got to be able to think through what your strategy is with a particular prospect, and you've got to make that call. The way that we move faster, the way we accelerate, the way that we become more efficient with our time and more effective is making good choices about how we communicate with the people we're selling to. So in a blended world, hybrid world, if you want to call that, but blending says, I'm going to pick the communication channel in this particular circumstance with this person, Will, that in this moment is going to give me the highest probability of getting my desired outcome at the lowest cost of time, energy, and money. So I saw somebody in the chat somebody came in from Helsinki. Okay, so you're from Helsinki, where it's cold, it's raining, what have you. I'm in Georgia. It's warmer than in Helsinki, and we need to have a meeting where we have a conversation about whether or not you're interested, say, in my platform, Salesgrave University, for training. Would it make sense to get on an international flight, fly 11 hours to go meet with you for what would probably be a 20 or 30-minute call? Probably not. So in that case, I'd schedule a video meeting. We're doing this on the Vidyard platform now. We just do a video meeting, have a conversation, talk about it, make a decision. Let's say in that conversation you said, listen, we want to spend $1 million on training this year. That's our budget. And we love Salesgravy. We love your system. We want you to come in, but we gotta get all our executives together because this is a massive cultural change worldwide. Could you come in and give us a proposal? I might say in that case, it might make sense if it's $1 million that I get on the airplane, fly to Helsinki, build a relationship with you, answer questions, get to know you, and I use the time together to move us toward closing the deal. I have to make that call. I may, in that situation, say, based on this, it makes more sense for us to get together on a video call. So what you've got to start thinking about, and this is for everybody, by the way, this is also for prospecting touches. What is the blend of touches? What are the touches in the moment that improve your probability of getting your desired outcome? And by the way, that's how I play the game, Will. Everything I do in sales is based on the probability that this particular move on the chessboard is going to get me the win that I'm looking for.
You're a stats person. Love it.
All stats.
So we're not going to Helsinki unless there's $1 million up for grabs. That's the answer to that one. We've got a really good question here from Will. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, Jeb. Will's currently a BDR and he has the opportunity, not me, to be promoted to a BDR manager. But he's conscious if that will hurt the prospects of him becoming an AE or an account executive in the future. So this is more of a careers focused question.
Yeah, well, I think that it's a great question. So if we were just set back, and this is not a sales question, but you got to think about what you want to accomplish. So if you're in sales and you move into a leadership role, what you're saying is, will this hurt me moving back into an individual contributor role? And the answer is, it might. Because once you move into a leadership role, the next step is not going to be go be an AE. It's going to be go manage AEs, because leadership is going to be different than selling. So if you said, I want to be in leadership, but I want to be rounded completely in the sales processes, from prospecting all the way into closing the deal, and maybe even into account management where you're managing a book of business, then maybe you want to think about your career path moving through those places and getting those experiences before you move into leadership. Because once you move into leadership, it's really difficult to go back into a single contributor role. And I've done that a couple of times in my career, so I know what I'm talking about. And when I did it, I was a leader, and there was an opportunity to move into an enterprise, like national account role, where we're talking about income levels that are close to 7 figures. So there was a massive jump in income. But even though my income got higher, and even though it was something that I really wanted to do, it was still an emotional and even an ego-driven pain to leave. I've got a group of people that count on me to, I'm all by myself, and I'm taking care of just my customers. So I would think very carefully about what you want to do. What I would typiclet advise you to do if you work for me is I would say, go sit down with your leaders, tell them what you want, explain the career path that you want to be on, and let them help you work on that path so that you can accomplish your end goal.
That's perfect. So it depends on really what you're aiming to do, the goal of that. That's awesome. All right. Got Ryan here. He's got a prospecting question. Not sure if you're the right person for this question, Jeb. Just messing with you. But do you find that folks are hesitant? You mentioned you used Vidyard earlier, and obviously we're at the Vidyard conference. Do you find that people are hesitant to click on that link, on that video, the thumbnail, when you send them one? What have you done to try and increase the chance of people opening your videos when you send them over via email?
So let's just get real. Somebody asked another question was, do you think it would send email to spam? So yes, the answer is both of those things. If you've got a link in an email, people are going to be hesitant to click on the link. That's because they're people, and clicking on a link carries risk. It'd just be like, if I said, let's go skydiving, and I said, would you be hesitant to jump out of the plane? Most people would say, yeah, I might be hesitant. They might still jump, but they'd be hesitant because there's a risk. And yes, if there's a link in your email, there is a probability. I don't know how big it is, but there's a probability that email might go to spam. Now, the good thing about Vidyard is a known organization, and spam filters are built to look at known organizations. So when you send a link from a big company like Vidyard, or from a Microsoft, or like you're sending a link in Dropbox, those links are less likely to get pulled out in a spam filter, because the spam filter takes into account the source of the link. So for all those reasons. And if you've got a thumbnail and your email clearly says, I made a video for you, like that's if you want one piece of advice, I made a video for you. And when they open it up, it better, by God, be a video that you made for them. I mean, if you made a video for 1,000 people, say, I have a video here, watch it, but I made a video. Will, I made a video for you. That's how I start off. Will, I made a video for you. That's going to get it watched more times than anything else, because if you made something for someone, they're going to be curious about what's in the video, and they're going to go watch it. So when I hear the question, if I can just speak freely, don't kill the messenger. But when I hear the question, what I'm really not hearing is, do you think this would happen? It is, Jeb, tell me that I need to go do this, because I don't really want to send videos. I don't really want to do videos because it makes me feel uncomfortable. Because you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. That's Wayne Gretzky. I stole that quote. So if you don't send a video message, there's no probability they're going to open it and watch it. So send the video message, tell them that you made a video for them, and then watch the stats. What Vidyard is going to tell you is, did they watch it? Who watched it? Did they pass it on? So the nice thing about having data like that is, if I know what the stats are, then I can see, am I missing the mark? Am I hitting the mark? And if they didn't watch the video, what do I need to change? Do I need to change my message? Do I need to maybe have a different subject line? Do I need to spell out more what's in there? Am I burying the link in text? If you do that, that may get you pulled out in spam, or in some cases, they may not want to click on it because they can't see the entire email or the entire URL. So you A/B test it just like any other marketer would. But I'm not going to let you off the hook because you don't like to do video. Do video. It freaking works.
I don't know why you think I'd shoot you for that one. That was amazing. I've not heard that one before. I think that's a lot of people do mention that, the spam thing, and it's often because there's resistance to the video. You could say the same thing about robo killers and making cold calls, right?
Yep.
You make excuses why not to do anything. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm just pulling up the next question. As a second touch, the first email doesn't include any links. That's in their inbox now. It's much less likely the second email is going to go.
And by the way, well, that's typically the cadence that I would go into. Yeah. I would send the first email would have no links at all.
Yeah.
And then if they open it up, what happens is, if you send something with no links, they open it up. These spam filters are built to see what activity is there. So if they open it up, then you're in. And if your email sucks and they block you because your email is a bunch of crap, then you're out. So you need to make sure that first touch is good and it's something that's valuable to them. And it's just, it's the same thing when you're doing marketing, doing bulk marketing. When someone responds to you, if you have somebody actually monitor and you respond back to them, then all the ISPs, all the spam filters see these are real human beings that are communicating with each other, and that makes your deliverable rates go up. I personally, I know this sounds crazy, but I've got like 1 million people on my list, and every time I send an email, when people write me back, people are sometimes surprised that it's me, but I write them back. But my deliverable rates on bulk email are 62%. I mean, that's crazy. I'm talking about open rates, 62%. But it's because there's engagement there. It's because it's human, and there is a science behind some of that. But you as a rep, it's really, really easy for you. Just make sure your messages are relevant and not just spammy crap. Take time to think about what's going to make your message relevant. I've got a formula in both virtual selling, a little bit deeper in virtual selling, and in fanatical prospecting, on a framework for emails that will make them more connecting, and they'll get them opened and read more often. And then pay attention to the data, test, change, iterate, adjust, and you'll get better and better and better along the way. But as you said, and this was brilliant, you can make an excuse for why not to do everything.
All right. I want the credit on your next book on that one. There's a question here from Trang. I'm not sure it makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah, I think I'm going to skip that one. I think, Trang, if you want to elaborate, the question is, how do you make your selling sessions not sound like sales? So I suppose the question, if I could translate that into what I think he's trying to ask, is how do you sound less salesperson-y in a meeting, I would say.
Yeah. And let me, so hold that one for a second.
Okay.
And Jason asked about government and military computers and email. So this comes up a lot.
Right, okay.
So just real quickly, I work with every branch of the military, and we send emails to every branch of the military. And you're exactly right. It will flatten out the email. It'll break it all to pieces. So when you're sending email to the government, don't send anything in it until the person engages with you. Once you're communicating with them, you tell them, I'm going to send you a link to watch a video. If you send a link to Vidyard to the government to watch a video, they can see it. I know this because I work with the government. I sell B2G. I wrote a book called Fanatical Military Recruiting, and we trained them. But if you send them a PDF-filled, link-filled video, email when you're prospecting, you're going to get completely blown out of the system. So you start, get engagement, and then once you're communicating, things get a whole lot easier. Now, Trent wants to know, how do I start a conversation and not sound so salesy? Okay, Trent, pay attention. A question that you ask is more important than anything that you will ever say. And anything that you say is more impactful when delivered in the form of a question. The problem for many salespeople is that you walk into sales meetings and you're worried about what you're going to talk about. You are worried about the wrong thing. When you walk into a meeting, you need to worry about what you're asking, because you never sound salesy when your mouth is shut. And people who do business with salespeople never complain about salespeople who listen. Your goal when you walk through a door is not to talk, not to pitch, not to talk about you. It is to ask questions. It is to discover. It is to listen. It is to get below the surface so that your prospect has an opportunity to listen to you. And by the way, in all those conversations, your prospect is asking 5 basic questions about you. And from the moment that you meet them, they want to know, first, do I like you? And Trent, you can just check this at the door. The most unlikable human being in your life is the person standing in front of you talking about themselves. So if you're talking about your prospect, which means you're asking questions, then you're going to be more likable. So do I like you? Question number 1. Do you listen to me? Question number 2. When you listen, you're more likable. Do you make me feel important or significant? The easiest way to make another person feel important is to ask them questions and listen to them. That's the 3rd question. 4th question, do you understand me? Do you get me and my problems? Well, the only way that you're going to understand them or get their problems is to listen to them tell their story about their problems. And once they tell their story, then you talk. Then you build value bridges from the things that you do to their problems and their stories. You connect those dots together. That makes it relevant. That makes you less salesy, because they're saying, oh, wow, Trent, he listened to me tell my story. He listened to the things that I'm dealing with. And then he brought some recommendations in that bridge the gap between those 2 things. And then finally, do I trust and believe you? And when you listen, when you build value bridges that are relevant to them, it gets a lot easier for them to trust and believe that you're the one person that is uniquely equipped to help them solve their problems. Do I like you? Do you listen to me? Do you make me feel important? Do you get me in my problems? Do I trust and believe you? When you answer those 5 questions in the affirmative, you don't sound salesy, and it becomes almost impossible for people not to choose to do business with you.
No one's ever said, I hate that they were such a good listener.
not once in the history of humanity.
Gosh darn it, so good at listening. Hate them. That's awesome. The next question is actually really interesting. So they've said, since the pandemic slowed, tell that to my son's daycare because he's home right now. So I'm not sure about that one. But virtual selling is kind of, is that changing? I know that you wrote a book on virtual selling when that became a real trend. Do you think that's going to roll back at all?
We're go back to the conversation around blending.
Yeah.
So because now we have the option to meet in person or to meet virtually. So think during the pandemic, there was only one option. We either meet on the phone or we meet by video or we communicate by text or we send emails to each other. And we can do direct messaging, which would be WhatsApp or LinkedIn messaging, that type of thing. Those were our options. So of course, if you wanted to sell and you wanted to build relationships, that's what you had to do. Today, we have the option of going in person or we have the option of meeting in some virtual format. And what's shifting and changing is that those options are fluid. So as we go through and we meet with our customers, back to blending, the customer in some cases is making that choice for us. And in other cases, we're making that choice for the customer. We're saying, I'm not flying to Helsinki for a 20-minute meeting, nor am I going to drive across Chicago for a 20-minute meeting, because both of those things may take exactly the same amount of time. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to think more critically about when I'm going to invest in person, when I'm going to be there via virtual. Now, the good news for field reps is that right now customers are starving and they're hungry for in-face or in-person, face-to-face conversations. I'm having a lot more of my own customers that are saying, in fact, I had one just last week say, could you hop on the plane, come down to Phoenix, come see me. Let's just have lunch. So it wasn't about, is this the most efficient use of our time? Because it's not. It was about, I really want to see you. So we're going to see a lot more of that over the next, say, 12 months. And then what's going to happen is once we get past that pendulum swing back to let's just get face to face, you're going to see people who are going to go back to virtual, hybrid, blending, however you want to call it. It's just going to be much more normal. It's going to be more fluid. I find that I'm doing far more meetings in video than I ever did before the pandemic. I don't see that changing at all. I see that I'm sometimes hungry just to have a phone call just so I can get off of a camera. So I understand that too. And even in the keynote world, you and I were talking about SKOs. If we look at this keynote season, at least 30% of the SKOs that I'm doing are virtual. Now, 70% of them are in person. Last year at this time, 90% of them were virtual, a couple of them were in person. So that switched. What I think will happen is that because we have the ability and the options, that over time, that 70-30 might be 60-40. And that's probably going to hold strong. But if we just look at it from just a pure market standpoint, what virtual has done is that smaller organizations are having sales kickoffs that they wouldn't have had before because they thought the only option was in person. And what it's done for me and my team is that we're able to touch that we never would have before because we thought the only way to do it was in person. And there was no way they could afford to have a small team to have me or one of my people come in person. And by the way, the same thing with sales. Today, you can, if you want to have a meeting, get your CEO on, your CEO can certainly peel off 15 minutes and meet your customer in a virtual format. 3 years ago, when we would have thought that was impossible, it would have been impossible because your CEO would have to get on the jet and go see them. And that costs too much money. So what's changing is that we're normalizing ways of doing business and communicating with each other that were already in play. We just compressed the time that this was going to happen from about 10 years to 2, but we're just normalizing all of that. And my message to you, and this is my message in virtual selling wasn't written for the pandemic. It was actually written for right now. It's a timeless book, is that if you want to be good in sales, if you want to make more money, if you want to have a bigger impact, if you want to get promoted, you have to be excellent at every form of communication. You can't say, oh, I'm only good in person, or I'm only good on video, or I really like the phone, or I'm really good on email. You better, by God, be good at all of those things, because your customer is going to make choices to do business with you based on how they feel about you. And if you're not particularly well equipped in one area of communication, and you do a terrible job communicating with your customer, then they're likely to choose your competitor. So get out there, get good at all of them, and just be prepared to blend those communication channels to give yourself the highest probability in any given situation of achieving your desired outcome at the lowest cost of time, energy, and money.
That's fantastic. Next question we have here from Helen, who has an interesting question. Jeb, how would you sell a product that nobody knows about and very few people are using yet? They have no clients, so no case studies, no success stories.
So this is a crazy answer. Okay, here's the answer, and you're not going to like this because you're looking for something complicated. Go talk to people. You need to have conversations. So you're thinking, how do I sell it? You may not even know how to bridge it or how to present it or how to connect it to your customers. If it's something that they don't know that they want, they might not even know how to buy it. So what I would do first is, okay, who's your target market? You probably know that, or at least if you don't know that, go figure it out. Understand who your ideal qualified prospect is, and then pick up the phone or walk in their door and talk to them and say, this is what we do. You probably haven't even thought about this. I want to walk you through it. Could you give me your opinion? And I would just listen to people. But the more conversations you have, the more you're going to sell, the more you're going to learn, and the more it's going to help you hone your message and hone your approach. And there's no other way to get there. You can't hire a fancy consultant to walk you through how to ride a bike, for example, and expect that you can go out in the street and get on a bike and ride a bike if you've never ridden one. You got to go ride the bike and fall off of it and learn. So that's what I would be doing if you were in that situation. And the other thing is, I would be, you got to think long game here. You've got to make sure that your any marketing is aligned with what you're selling. And sometimes to go out and have conversations with people that would buy from you will help you align your marketing. And you got to play the long game here. This isn't going to be instant. So give yourself a little bit of space. And we'll just one example. We just launched a product at the beginning of this month that we've been working on since 2017. And we've tried 10 different iterations of selling it and didn't work, couldn't pull it off, didn't get the messaging right, didn't have the packages right, just didn't have it right. But we knew in our heart that it was a good product. But we talked to enough people, we failed enough times that finally it all started coming together. And we relaunched it, and then it's just been a wild success. Like, we got it right this time, and it wasn't something that people knew that they wanted. It wasn't something that they'd ever seen before because no one else could get it right either. But it took that persistence of working at it and working at it and working at it to finally get us to a place where we figured the formula out.
Talk to people. Main symbol there. I like it, by the way. I'm sure Helen will too. There's a question here which is actually really interesting because we kind of touched on it earlier, asking questions. No one likes someone who dislikes someone who listens to them. This person, Bob, says, they've come across lots of articles where you have to earn the right to ask the question in the first place. When they implement this, a vast number of leads still want to just skip all of that and dive straight into the demo. Since I'm selling in the Netherlands, I'm wondering whether it could be a cultural thing or whether or not you just have some leads out there who will not take the time to answer your questions. This happened to me a lot when I used to do a discovery call. You'd be like, can you just show me the product, especially with inbound leads? So what would be your advice there?
Yeah, well, you have to flex to your customers. So if you think about, we use a term called, our acronym called ACE, but ACE is analyzers, collaborators or consensus builders, energizers, and directors. And that's just how people communicate with the world. And those are our terms. If you did a DISC profile on people, you would see the same patterns emerge. So when I'm running my business, I'm a CEO, I'm a director. Now, when I'm training and I'm selling, I'm an energizer. And most people move between different types of communication styles. So if someone shows up and I'm interested in their product, now think about most products that require a demo. In a lot of cases, those were inbound leads that were generated by marketing, maybe an MQL, and then it got moved into an SQL, and then they set up a demo with you. They've probably already done a lot of research. Like, for example, if you go to the Vidyard website and you hang out long enough, y'all have so much content there. There's so much information that I could go through that and dive in and probably have a pretty good understanding of what it was. But I'm curious because you've done a really good job of hyping it and making me excited about it and learning about it. And whatever marketing material you had, that that made sense. I saw one of your sales reps who came in early on and was prospecting in chat. Hey, I'm right here for you. If you want a demo of Vidyard, you click on this, come see me. So by the time the person gets there, they got a lot of information. They just want to see it. If you're dealing with a director like me, let's get to the point. Let's show me what you got, because I'm making a decision really, really quickly. On the flip side, if you're an analyzer, I might want to kind of get an understanding of what you're doing and what's important to you. So I've got to ask you questions about how this is going to fit into your world. Now, if you're an energizer, like you're a person like Will over here, likes to talk, likes to hang out, wants to build relationships, then Will's going to be much more willing to sit down, have that conversation with you, build some rapport and learn before you drop into a demo. In fact, he's going to expect that. He wants you to learn more about them. So you got to think about the person that you're dealing with. And if you understand that, then it's a lot easier to drop right into the demo. So number one, make sure you know who you're dealing with, because if you're dealing with a director, get to the point, and you don't get to the point, you're going to lose them. Take them through the demo. Ask them the discovery questions in the demo. Hey, this thing does this. What do you think about that? Walk me through what you're looking for. Just get into it. So first of all, think about flexing to the style of the person that you're dealing with and understanding this is not, I do a lot of work in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands certainly is an interesting culture, but believe it or not, the Dutch are much more like Americans than you are willing to admit. And Americans are, just show me. Okay. I just want to see it. So I see you laughing because I'm right. So, but now if we take a look at step back from there, think about how you're setting that meeting up. If I said, Will, here's our process. The first meeting is a short discovery meeting. I want to learn a little bit more about you and your organization so that I can get the demo set up so that it's tailored to you and I don't waste your time. Now, if you say that to a director goes, okay, got that. Don't waste my time. That's good. So if you're an analyzer, you're going, okay, this person's really going through the process. If you're an energizer, I get to talk a lot. If you're a consensus builder, this person cares, wants to make sure that we have all our team together, get the ducks in a row, lowers our risk. Then you schedule the demo. So you set the discovery meeting up first without the demo being there, and then you schedule the demo. Now, the reason you're going to get the demo is because now they're curious and they want to see the demo. So you're definitely going to get the next meeting unless you totally blow it. What you have to be careful of, and this is what really goes wrong, is you do that short discovery meeting and you set the demo up, but you don't set the meeting up after the demo. So after that discovery meeting, 2 next steps: demo and meeting after the demo. So we're going to do the demo, and then what the commitment I want from you, Will, is that 24 hours later, after you've had a chance to chew on it, you and I are going to get together, and I just want a thumbs up, thumbs down. If it's thumbs down, we don't need to talk anymore. That's cool. I can accept that. If it's thumbs up, then we can talk about the next steps. Will that work for you? So I'm walking through that cadence. I'm not going in the door and going to give everything I have all at one time. I want to hold back so I have leverage. So if you say we're going to do a demo and then you try to do discovery at the beginning of the demo, as I explained, it's, at least for the directors of the world, you've lost them. So set it up right. But in situations where you're dealing with a person that says, just show me, flex to it. Just show them, but slow down, ask questions while you're doing it, get them engaged, and you'll have a pretty good understanding at the end of the demo whether or not you're going to keep moving or they've just eliminated you.
It's awesome. Set expectations up front about the agenda of the meeting. If you need to flex and show them the product and ask them the questions while you're doing it. And the third one you mentioned, book 2 next steps, not just book 1 next step. That's gold.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Dutch are a lot like Americans, even though they don't want to admit it.
Yeah, you have a hard time getting any European to admit that, I think. We've got Kakpa here. Kakpa has their email reply rate is really low. They want to know, when selling over email, is it better to be really direct? They're saying like 2 sentences and cut the fluff entirely. What's your kind of go-to format for emails these days when prospecting?
Okay, first, don't sell over email. So just don't sell over email. So wipe this let's call it the delusion, a delusion that you're going to be able to sell via email. You can use email to engage people, to get them to respond to you, so you can convert that into a meeting and have a conversation. But very, very rarely are you going to sell over email. And by the way, if your product can be sold over email, pack your bags, get your resume ready, because your company doesn't need you anymore, because we can hire robots that can do that. So don't think that way. My email responses are really, really low. Yep. And that's the truth. And that's always going to be the truth. So like if you're getting a 0.1% response rate, you got way big problems. But if you're getting 2 to 3 to 4% of people are responding to you, that's probably about right. Email is not the most efficient way to prospect. We think that we can send a bunch of bulk emails out that all sound the same and people are going to respond to it. But the truth is, they know that it's not written for them. They know that it's not personalized, and you're just not going to get a big response rate. You could just send out, anything. So if you want to improve your response rates, think about it like this. My emails need to be personalized. They need to be relevant. So you need to make sure that both the subject line and the first sentence are about your prospect. I get them all the time. We're the greatest company that does this. We do this, blah, 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 blah. We, blah, blah, blah. I don't care. What about me? So talk about me. And so if your first sentence and first paragraph are talking about me, and then you can relate to me, Jeb, people that are, CEOs of scaling businesses, you got a lot on your plate. You're trying to do everything all at once. And there are days when you go home and you feel tired, you feel worn out. I'd go, yeah, I know that person. So then you want to bridge to how do you solve their problem? And that's exactly why I wrote you this note, because we've got a platform that is built for founders and CEOs of scaling companies that allows you to manage your time in a way that you've really never seen before. And this is so cool that the only way for you to experience it is to see it. And I just want to grab 20 minutes of your time to walk you through the platform and how it works to see this would be a fit for you. That would be an email that would grab my attention. But that would have to be an email that you wrote for me. So you have to do that. So if you want to get more responses, more opens, more conversion, you've got to make the email work for you. I'll send you back to Fanatical Prospecting, Virtual Selling. There's a framework there that will help you. I write emails for you to show you how to write an email, show it's good, show it's bad, and that will help you out a lot. But for everyone who's listening, if you're expecting that you're going to get high response rates off of email, you're smoking a tall one. I mean, you're not going to get huge response rates from email. Email should be part of an ongoing sequence that includes a telephone call, that includes a video message, that includes direct messaging, that includes, a touch on social media, that maybe includes snail mail, which works really, really well these days because the mailbox is almost empty. And if you're in the field, might include an in-person touch.
Don't just send emails, because if you are, then you're smoking a tool one. Understood.
Yes. Or a long one, either way.
Tool or a long one.
Or a fat one. Could be a fat one.
Where you orientated, right?
Right.
We got Holly here, who was previously a teacher, made a transition to sales, now selling ed tech. I love that, because now you're selling to people that you know. Holly wants to know, what advice would you give to someone who's just getting started in sales?
Yeah, I think, Holly, first of all, because you were a teacher and now you've moved into ed tech, and I'm going to make the assumption that you're selling into schools or educational organizations that you would have worked in as a teacher. First of all, start with what you know and what you're confident in. You know how to speak the language. You know the people that you'd be selling to. That's why you got the job in the first place. And focus on that, because it's easy when you're first starting out to lose some confidence or feel insecure because you've changed something, you're doing something new. That's just human nature. So the one thing is, go look in the mirror and remind yourself of all of the things that you already know and all of the reasons why you took the job, and use that to drive your confidence. Number two, we're going to go back to talking with people. The most important thing that you can do right now is have lots of conversations. Even if many of those conversations are to unqualified people or don't go anywhere, the way that you're going to learn how to sell your service, your product, your software is that you're going to talk to the people that you're going to sell to, and they're going to begin to teach you what their objections are. They're going to tell you why they wouldn't buy from you. They're going to tell you what's important to them. You're going to have conversations, and over time, that's going to build your confidence. And the way that I would approach it is detach from the outcome. Don't have the conversation with the expectation that I'm going to set the appointment, I'm going to get the demo, I'm going to do these things. Take all that pressure off of you. Call people up, tell them who you are, tell them what you do, ask them questions about their qualification to do business with you, what's important to them, move to the next one. And do that consistently for like 60 days. Then put the hammer down and start prospecting. Because the one thing I can tell you is that the number one reason why you'll fail is not that you're new, it's because you have an empty pipeline. So at some time during the next 90 days, you have to switch to build pipe. And the only thing you focus on is building pipe, because the pipe is life. The pipe is everything. So let me recap. Talk to lots of people. Let your prospects, let your customers teach you how to sell, teach you their objections, and then make a shift into heavy prospecting, build the pipeline. Do that first. Don't count on SDRs, don't count on marketing, don't count on inbound leads. You build the pipe, and then it'll take you 6 months to 9 months to maybe even 12 months to get it all figured out. But at some point, if you're prospecting, if you're building pipe, if you're doing the right thing, it'll click on and you're going to be amazing.
Love it. You mentioned earlier that was it a sequel, or did you say Fanatical Prospecting Sequences? You mentioned there was something about sequences coming up. Someone just wants to know, when's that coming out?
It should be out in late fall of this year. And it's already, it's right. We're going to change the name. It's Fanatical Prospecting Playbook on Amazon, but we're going to switch the name. My publisher doesn't even know that yet. So if Shannon, if you're watching, I'm sorry, but we're switching the name of this book. And so it'll be out in late fall. And then we're also doing an update on Fanatical Prospecting. We're not going to put out a new edition, but also by the fall, we did the book in 2015. So there's going to be a kind of a run through the book to clean up some language and some terminology so that it's all connecting together. And I think I've got permission to add a couple of small chapters to the original Fanatical Prospecting book. So there might be a sticker on it that says updated for now, but we're doing both of those things are happening this year.
I'm certain this wouldn't have any way in on it, but I'm voting that you call it Fanatical Prospecting when you update it. Just like go with the Fast and Furious franchise.
That's right.
Movie naming conventions. We got Noah, who's trying to stay motivated, wants to know if you have any tips to stay motivated while selling, whether it's to stay on the phone or keeping the energy when you aren't seeing the results you want for a day, a week, even a month.
For me, my answer is you've got to know what it is that you want. So I call it the big pull. And if you think about, I just use squirrels, my favorite animals in the world. But if you got a bird feeder in your backyard and you know that squirrels come in, they clean your bird feeder out. And if you really like feeding birds, and there are people who do, you'll put up these little obstacles to keep the squirrels out. And there's some amazing videos on YouTube. Just type in squirrel obstacle courses and go watch them. BBC even made a big documentary, 2 documentaries about squirrels and obstacle courses for squirrels. But if you watch it, all of them, the squirrels win every single time. But as you watch it, the squirrels get knocked down, the squirrels fall out of trees, they fall off of clotheslines, they fall out of the obstacles, they bang their heads, they get totally messed up, but they get back up and they keep going. And the reason they keep going is that 24/7, they're not thinking about being motivated, they're thinking about what they want. And what they want is birdseed. They think about it every single moment of the day. They're absolutely driven to get the birdseed. So no matter what happens, no matter whether they're getting the result that they want, they get up every day and they go focus on getting birdseed, and eventually they get there because they're persistent. Well, if you want to do the same thing, you gotta be the squirrel. Think like a squirrel. What is your birdseed? What is your big pull? What is it that you want? Most people who tell me they're having a hard time staying motivated or ask me what they needed to do to stay motivated, if I ask them, what is it that you want? What are your goals? What do you desire the most? Why are you doing this? They can't tell me. And if you can't tell me, then you're probably not going to be motivated to do the hard things you have to do in sales in order to get to your birdseed. Another way of looking at it is just you're talking about how do I stay motivated to be disciplined? But discipline is defined as sacrificing what you want now for what you want most. If you don't know what you want most, you're not going to sacrifice what you want now. You're just going to do what you want now. So what I would suggest doing, for this is for everybody who is watching, is go sit down and put together a set of goals. And we've got if you go to salesgravy.com and you go to resources, there's a free goal sheet that you can pull down, but you don't need that. But if you want to pull that down, there's no cost to it. Just download it. And if you download that, it'll walk you through a series of steps to build a set of goals. But you could also just get out a piece of paper and write down, these are the 5 things that I want. Write those things down, decide how bad you want them. And then when you're having a bad day, and you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna, bump your head into a wall, you're gonna fall off a clothesline, you're gonna fall on your back because it didn't work out. You're not thinking about how do I stay motivated? You're thinking, I want this goal. And that's when you dust yourself off and you run right back into the game with all your enthusiasm, because you're focused on something that is important to you beyond, I just got to get through this call block. I just got to get through this call. I got to get through this demo. Focus on what you desire.
Beautifully said. We've got a lot of questions and not a lot of time. I'm sure you're used to this when you do these AMAs. I was just thinking, should I? Do you think? Okay, I'm going to skip to maybe some of the more like juicy questions.
This would be a AJA. Ask Jeb anything.
Yeah, you're right. Don't ask me anything. I'm not. I couldn't answer half these questions. There was one question that I just saw that flew by. Do you think AI and machine learning is going to have a huge impact on sales? If so, what?
I do. This is a great question, because we've been asking this question for 5 years. So it was like, do you think LinkedIn's going to have a great impact on sales? Or do you think Google's going to have a great impact on sales, or the internet? Or can you imagine when the phone started becoming normal, back in the early 1900s, do you think the phone's going to have a big impact on sales? So whenever there's new technology, there's always that question, is it going to have a big impact on sales? And I think so. I mean, let me give you an example. Let's just say that you want to write a better sales email. Well, Chat GPT might be able to help you craft some of the messaging. So I've used Chat GPT in a couple of situations where I'm trying to build messaging. So I ask it a question and it spits out some words. Now, the words are written by a robot. They're pretty good, but they're not great. But it gets you started. Then when you take that and start breaking it down, you can move a lot faster. So what AI did for me was gave me a way to create something that was unique, that sounded human, but it did a lot of the heavy lifting for me. So I didn't have to spend so much time up front thinking about what I wanted to say. I just asked it a question. Sometimes it gets it completely wrong. When you think about the ability for AI to finish a thought, or to help you map out how you're going to run your territory, or to grab information, glean information from the web that you couldn't possibly do about someone's intention. So I'm in the sales training space. So imagine that Will's thinking about sales training, and AI could see that he's done a search for this, or he's gone over here, or he's been done this on social media. It sees patterns, and it can grab those patterns, and it can say, hey, suddenly Will's interested in sales training, and I call up Will. That would be an interesting thing for me to get, and that would be a game changer. And I think AI is doing those things for us. I think AI is probably going to displace some salespeople and some sales roles, but that's not new. We've consistently displaced salespeople and sales roles in different industries for different reasons. What I would suggest is that where AI is going to have the biggest impact is it's going to help us in very subtle ways. I don't think there's going to be some big, like massive, everything changes at one time. What it's going to help us do is it's going to help us have a higher emotional intelligence, and have a higher relationship building presence with our customers, build deeper emotional connections, because AI takes away a lot of the things that we're not really good at doing, and it can do that for us so that we can be more human. And that gets muddied in like the chat GPTs, and I can I can draw a picture, and I can see what Will's next question is going to be. It gets lost in that. But if you can learn how to use a lot of tools that are getting AI built into them in a way that takes away the hard work, and then you invest the extra time in the human to human relationships. That's where you earn your stripes. That's where, as good as robots are, they're not going to replace that, at least not in my lifetime. And if they do replace it, it would be a very, very different world. So allow AI and technology and tools to give you the wings to go be more human, and that will allow you to close more business, and it'll make this job a whole lot more fun.
I love it. Not in your lifetime, so it's more something I have to worry about, right? Me,
There
me
you
and
go.
Junior, right?
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Will. Appreciate it.
Sorry, I'm young, by the way, just in case anyone didn't notice. That wasn't meant to be anyway, we'll move on from that real quick. We've already got time for maybe one more question. We've got 2 minutes, 51 seconds left in this session. You up for one more?
Yes, absolutely.
I'm going to try and merge 2 questions. Someone said
Okay.
people are saying that these days you need to make sure you have the CFO involved in your sales cycles because they want to make sure the risk. Another question was like, how early should you try and involve other people from the organization and try and get them involved, and how should you do that? So those I'm going to mangle into kind of 3 in 1.
Okay, so ask me the question again. There's a lot there. Okay.
Yeah. Really, the question is multi-threading. How should you do it? Who should you try and get involved? Is the CFO crucial to be involved in deals these days? This is a real compound question.
In your company or in your stakeholders' company?
In your stakeholders' company.
Well, it depends on what you sell. So yeah, if you're selling something that is high risk, that is a specialized financial instrument, or is going to require the company to expend capital in order to make this investment, and that capital has got to get an ROI on it. If it's a board level decision, if it's something that has the potential to have so much impact on the organization that it's going to be involved in strategic planning. Yeah, you want to get every officer, every C-levels person involved, and you necessarily need to do that. So where you're selling something for the organization that carries a lot of risk, you need to get everybody involved that you possibly can. On the flip side of that, there's things that my marketing manager buys that never involves my CEO, because all it is do I have budget? So the CEO said, you got budget, you get to make decisions on how you spend it. So sometimes we have those conversations, sometimes we don't. She makes a bunch of mistakes, then maybe she's talking to the CFO. So every deal, every company, every product, every service is going to be different. What I would say is the more stakeholders that you can involve, the more stakeholders that you can get having a conversation with you, the better off you're going to be, because then you're able to, first of all, solve for, is there someone out there that I don't know that could say no? And you're able to build advocates for you inside the organization. So I'll leave you with a basic, and well, it is basic, but a basic acronym to think about as you think about engaging stakeholders. And it's called BASIC, and you can learn this in Sales EQ, another book that I wrote, or Inked. It's also in that book as well. And BASIC stands for buyers, amplifiers, seekers, influencers, and coaches. So when I look at a deal, I look at it that way, whether it's a specialized person. So think about it like this. There are 2 types of buyers. Buyers can sign contracts, so they can say yes, and buyers can fund the contract. In most small purchases, that buyer is the same person. But in a large purchase, the CEO might be able to say, yes, I want this, or the CIO may say, yes, I want this, but the CFO has to fund it. And if you don't understand that going in, you'll get burned. I've been there where I've had a CMO say yes to something, and then the CFO later on said, no, we're not going to spend the money. So you need to know those things. That's going to be deal size. Amplifiers are the people inside the organization that typically are using your product or service, are impacted by your product or service, but don't have a lot of influence or juice in the deal. So those are the people that you're selling bottom up. So if I want to influence a C-level executive, if I get the amplifiers in the organization saying, hey, we need this. This is important to us. So one Vidyard strategy, for example, is get a lot of the salespeople in an organization using the product, and then level that up to the chief revenue officer and say, hey, you need to do this. You got half your company's using this. If we put this together in an enterprise package, we can do this, this, and this for you. You should do that all the time. Seekers are where most sales dreams go to die. So if you're an organization that generates leads, so say our friend over here in ed tech, and you get say a teacher who comes into one of your webinars. This is a webinar event, right? Oh, I want to see more. That's what we call them. Seekers see more. I just want to see more. Yep. So, but the seekers are the people who say, I'm looking, but I'm holding the information and I won't level you up to someone else. You just need to know that. Yeah. Then there are influencers. And this is important for this question, because when you start thinking about bringing other stakeholders in, you have influencers in 3 different flavors. You have advocates for you. You have agnostics. I don't care, whichever way the wind blows. And you have naysayers. And CFOs, CIOs, technical people, a lot of times they fit into the naysayer bucket. And you want to know who they are so you can neutralize them. And then finally, there are coaches. If you're working on a deal that's big enough to get the CFO involved, you better, by God, have a coach. You need somebody in that organization that is feeding you information. This is a person who wants you to win the deal, but they're willing to give you that information so that they teach you how to navigate the organization, and they'll teach you a little bit about what happens as the organization is making decisions, where those chips are going to fall, and then where you need to begin to engage. And a good coach will say, you're going to have a problem here, or you need to have help here, or I'll get you into this door over here. So buyers, amplifiers, seekers, influencers, and coaches. So if you start looking at your deals that way across this, and I just use BASIC as it's an easy acronym to remember, and you start identifying those people as you map your stakeholder groups, and then just lead with the paranoia that there's somebody out there waiting in the weeds for you that you don't know, and they're going to eat your lunch. And so you're always looking. That will help you shape and map the stakeholders in any given deal to know which people, including the CFO, are going to be most important to involve, or could have the potential of killing your deal at some point, even though you did everything else right.